Let's consider pendant and drop beads. These are actually pendant beads because the thread runs through the length of the bead. You can see there's sort of a faceted pear shape. And I've got them arranged on a thread in a specific order. So we'll start with the pearl that I had at the end and secure that on to your fabric. And then to put these on, we just take a regular stitch and then you pull it back like you do on the very beginning stitch, bring your thread around and make another stitch here. That sets your thread up at the narrow end of the bead, and you just continue this all the way around the pearl, and what you're creating basically are spokes of beads around the pearl, and because of the way they're shaped, they will fan naturally around there. What you want to be careful for is when you bring that thread back, you can see right there that it is right under the bead next to the fabric as opposed to that thread going over the bead, because you don't want to see that thread on the other side. So you see how it's right up between the fabric and the bead, and that way there it prevents it from crossing over the bead, and you don't have to deal with those threads on the other side, and they completely disappear. I'm just going part way around this little motif, but you get the idea. You can go all the way around with these particular beads. And you can see here, those diagonals. Those are the returning threads that you don't want to have crossing on top of the beads. You want to make sure they're underneath the beads. You can see there's one right there, and then there's the other one right there, and then this one is right back onto itself underneath. So now let's move and talk a little bit about drop beads. Now the difference is the way they're drilled. Drop beads are drilled across the top or across one end of the bead, as opposed to being drilled during the whole length of it. So these give a different texture and a different feel. They will actually move on the garment or on the project because they're only held on at one end. So an easy way to thread them in a particular pattern is like this. Put them on your needle, on your hook, lay your thread on top of the hook, and simply slide them over. And there they are. That's the easiest way to thread up very specific patterns of beads. At least that's the fastest way I've found. And then stitching these on, they go on no different than as if they were a small bead. It's just take the stitch that fits the dimension of the end of the bead. In this case, this is probably about 3 or 4 millimeters maybe. And I generally will always take another little locking stitch just to keep that in place. And if you make your stitch a little bit bigger, it'll have a little more play. It'll be a little looser. If you make it tighter, because the ends of these are blunt, they will actually stand up. But most pendant beads are pointed at the top. So you'll just want to stitch them on like regular. I'm just going to make a square with this just for fun with these bugle beads. Again, giving myself a little locking stitch afterwards, coming around the corner here with the last one. You could even do these just in straight lines with bugle beads or seed beads, and then intermix them with the drop beads. There's all kinds of possibilities. Just because it's a different shape, it doesn't matter. If you can run a thread through it, you can apply it with the tambour hook, as you will see. Whoops, as you will see with these. And they will have a great deal of movement on the other side, because they're long beads, and they're only held on by at one end, as opposed to having a thread going all the way through it. You can see how much movement there is in these, and that's still on the stretched fabric. If this were on a garment and taken off, it would be very, very, very kinetic, to say the least, on a garment. So this is another way of playing with pendant beads. This time I've got them a small point to small point alternating. And I measured one and took two. very much like we did with the bugle beads, and it just makes them stand up. I've got two others here of much larger size, but the same thing. I'm measuring the length of one, but I need to give a little extra stitch to give it some space there. I'm measuring the length of one, but taking two beads. And now they're doing the same thing that the bugle beads do, but it gives a completely different look because of the shape of the beads. They're not just a straight line of bead. They're more of a pear shape. And you can play with these in a variety of ways. You will just want to give yourself a little bit more space in between each one so that they line up neatly and don't try to force itself into the same spot. So this is how that little motif looks on the front. No threads showing, and you can do half fans, full fans, half circles. You can go all the way around. There's all kinds of possibilities for that. And then here are the other pendant beads put on so that they're standing up on their big ends. This would look very neat with them like this, and then having something woven in and out of them to so that they're supporting either ribbons or other threads. And here are our drop beads, and you can see right now on the stretched fabric, they're standing up on their ends. You can see that their ends are flat, and because of the tension in the thread and the tension on the fabric, they actually will stand up by themselves on the fabric. But as soon as that fabric comes off the frame, they will loosen and gravity will take over, and which is a nice concept and a nice quality about these kinds of beads, because they can add a tremendous depth and dimension and kinetic energy to any kind of a design. So there you have it, pendant beads and drop beads. Nothing to be afraid of. Have fun with them.